Tonight's show is brought to you by The Ultimate Production Tutorial. If you like what you see and you want to know more about film production, please follow the website link in the description below to learn more. While you're there, you can check out my show notes, where you can double-check my references, comment, and act like the film critic I know you are.
Thanks.
Also, all of the items on the website are affiliate links, so if you find anything of interest, please click on through. Finally, please subscribe, follow, like, share, comment, pray, and send good vibes to help us keep delivering great content. And now, on with the show. Welcome to another edition of Movie Night Madness. I'm your host, Sisyphus Jones, and I'm joined by my co-host and partner, Doc Rock. On tonight's agenda, we have a short presentation about some of the trivia and the production that went into tonight's film, and then we're going to watch the movie, and then we'll have a post-movie discussion, and I'm sure the movie discussion is going to be quite good for this film because it's a cheesy movie, and it's a good movie, and the plot is awesome, and it feeds on a whole bunch of the stuff that we've been following for the last couple of years. Tonight's film, we have Logan's Run. It was released in 1976. It was directed by Michael Anderson. It stars Michael York, Jenny Agutter, and Richard Jordan. It also has a cameo by Farrah Fawcett.
Farrah.
Ooh, Farrah. No, she still looks she's very good looking.
Prime Farrah, too. Farrah.
Exactly. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a pretty weak score in general, and IMDb is like right below the rating I started to trust movies at, but still a good movie and a lot of fun to make fun of. It had a budget of $7.5 million in 1976, which is adjusted for today's money as $40 million. And it had a domestic box office take-in of $25 million, which is $134 million today, which means it's about 12 million tickets sold, give or take. Black Panther 2, another sci-fi blockbuster movie from last year, just to give it a question of being able to compare it, had a budget of $181 million. It made $454 million domestically, which is equivalent to about 43 million tickets. So it sold more tickets, but made less profit. This movie was nominated for Best Cinematography and also Best Art Direction, but it was a winner for a Special Achievement Award for Best Visual Effects.
Which was controversial.
Yes, it was controversial because it had to share the prize with King Kong from 1976, which is a movie that I don't quite remember. I remember the Peter Jackson one. I don't remember this version of it. However, it doesn't matter too much because as far as sci-fi is concerned, it won a 1977 Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. Since the 1990s, there have been several attempts to readapt this novel with no success, including one announced by Warner Brothers in 1997, which was rumored to star Leonardo DiCaprio. And as of September 2020, the project still resides in development hell. So the director is Michael Anderson. It's the first time I've actually known this guy. I don't know who this guy is. He's known for a couple of other conspiracy-adjacent films. He did a 1956 version of 1984 with Edward O'Brien and Michael Redgrave. And then Around the World in 80 Days, which we've all watched. It's not quite conspiracy, but because it's a Jules Verne book and, that time, and it talks about all the crazy stuff that, technocrats would talk about and stuff. So it's, like I said, it's a conspiracy adjacent. And that particular film won 5 different Academy Awards. So this movie was based on a novel by William Francis Nolan. The major differences between the movie and the novel is that in the movie, they changed the age to 30 instead of 21 because it wasn't realistic to have all the cast be 21 years old. And also, finding good actors and all that type of stuff at that particular time. The palm flowers, which was written in the book, became life clocks in the movie. The execution session in the middle, in the beginning of the film, is called a sleep shop, where people were killed by using pleasure-inducing gas. In the film, they turned it into a carousel, which was a very complicated shot. We'll learn about that shot a little later. And also, Sanctuary turns out to be a real place. And spoiler alert, a real place. And it was a space station in the book. In the movie, it's just outdoors, essentially. And the city population was about 400,000 people, which I'm not sure what they said in the film. Is that what they said in the film? Or did I put this information on the wrong slide?
The city in the film was about 400,000 people.
Okay. All right. But in the book, I guess there's... Okay. Well, whatever. So this is one of the contested scenes in the film. They had to cut down. It was a 4-minute scene that was cut down to about a minute and a half, and they had to cut it down because it was too edgy. This was it was called the Love Shop sequence, and it had to be re-edited to be granted a PG rating. And the scene had several characters there was another scene that was also cut out called the Hallucimil, where there was a lot of drug use in there too, so they cut that one out also. One of the most complex scenes in the film, and also considered one of the more complex shots in the 70s using wires specifically, was this scene with a carousel. They basically had 2 floors that spun around, so you had the floor spinning around and the ceiling spinning around, and the camera was also following the stuff either on the spinning floor or at another angle, and it was very difficult to get the shots, specifically because they didn't have wide-angle lenses wide enough to do it. So they had a specific lens built for it. I'll talk about it in a second. And also because of the kind of mechanisms used, the actors would slam into each other. It was kind of complicated. And to give you an idea of what the production on this looked like. So you had the spinning roof with the spinning lights.
Seek a means to live longer in any society.
Can you guys hear this?
The film envisions an attempt at life renewal in the 23rd century through a mystical liturgy witnessed by thousands of younger spectators in a jammed arena.
It's a spinning platform, getting the crowd.
The theater has been constructed with a rotating carousel. The cameras photograph the action from all angles to give the audience realistic points of view during the ride.
And it's actually a really pretty neat effect, even though you see the wires.
This was hellish to film.
The company...
That's that. This is one of the first films to use Dolby Stereo on 70mm prints. Even though it was shot in 70mm, it looks kind of grainy and weird at certain moments. It didn't use the subwoofer track. It used 4 out of the 6 possible tracks for the Dolby Stereo, and it was nicknamed the subwoofer tracks were called the Baby Booms, which was heavily used in a movie the next year called Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope, and also Close Encounters of the Third Kind in '77. So this was the first movie to use it, but they didn't use it fully. They also created a lens. The director called Todd AO, was like, listen, we need a lens. Can you guys do something about this? And Todd AO ended up making a lens specifically for this film. It's the first wide angle 120 degree, this right over here in the middle, 120 degree angle anamorphic lens that was used in film production until that time. This is the first movie that used holograms within the actual film. Michael York was the first actor to be shot on hologram, and it was done by the Multiplex Company Laboratories in San Francisco, which created a very unique pre-production for filming, because they had to do a lot of stuff beforehand. The miniatures, which on film look way smaller, were actually 3 to 4 foot in scale. You could see them moving the cameras around and just to get an idea of the scale of size. They were so well done, or they were so appreciated, that the same miniatures were used 10 years later for the movie The Ice Pirates, which I've never seen, and it looks wonderfully terrible.
It's not very good. There's some neat stuff about it and some neat actors, but it's not all that good.
So this should have been called the costumes, but I said the Knight Rider connection. I think I got into what we were talking about when I put the slide together. So the costumes were very specific. As a publicity stunt, they had a modeling show. All the costumes within the movie, the colors are based on their age. So the younger you are, the redder the color, I guess, and the bluer the color, or vice versa. You're gonna have to watch it. I actually didn't pay attention, but that's what they said in a certain article that I read. And David Hasselhoff was one of the guys modeling the clothing during this publicity stunt that they did.
Right.
As a 6 degrees of separation of this film with the last film that we watched, which was The Parallax View. William Daniels was in the last film. He is the voice of Kit and Knight Rider, and David Hasselhoff modeled clothing for this film. So they're connected. There's a connection.
We didn't plan it. It's not a conspiracy.
It's totally a conspiracy.
This is a coincidence. This is
so the conspiracy. Yeah, speaking of conspiracies, let's get to the conspiracy that's talked about this in this film. This, my friends, is Aubrey de Grey. He is a scientist who believes that we can achieve eternal life. And the film deals a lot with the concept of the control of a human lifespan. He is the co-founder of the Longevity Escape Velocity Foundation, and he believes in life extensions from the point of view of being able to replace parts of yourself to continue living. So he says, what's an antique car? An antique car is an old car whose parts have been replaced throughout time to just keep it new. So like you look at an antique car, it looks new, but it's not new because it's an old car, but all the parts have been replaced. He says if we can do that on a molecular level, we can essentially escape aging and live forever. He's got a very odd solution for the overpopulation problem that will be inherent with being able to live forever. And
everybody wanted to live for thousands of years. Well, of course, the obvious problem is overpopulation.
The question of overpopulation comes up a great deal when one talks about life extension, and rightly so, because it's an important question. But ultimately, let's face it, people don't just spontaneously become two people. They do it on purpose. Births have to happen, and they only happen when we want them to happen. So ultimately, it's a matter of choice. It's a matter of, do we want to continue our youthful lives of the people who are already alive, or do we want to have a turnover of people dying, and of course not just dying, but dying rather horribly, because aging, let's face it, isn't very much fun, and being replaced by people who are being born. I think that, you can argue it both ways. There are plenty of reasons why we might think that the turnover of people might be good, but ultimately what's absolutely essential is to give the choice, to give people the opportunity to live indefinitely, to give societies the opportunity to choose to live indefinitely, rather than have children, rather than at the moment not having the choice, having to go for the turnover.
Aubrey says that to avoid overpopulation, the birth rate and the death rate would have to balance, and there could even be a law that says if you want a child, you'd have to find somebody to die first. Perhaps you'd sign your own death warrant and stop your life extension treatment. You'd die to make room for a new person.
If you enjoy life so much, what about giving some other people a chance who haven't been born yet?
There is a long tradition within society of treating people who are already alive as being more important than people who are not yet alive. In the same way that we say that condoms are okay. If you think that people are actually just as important who have not even been conceived yet as people who are already alive, then you should be having as many children as you can all the time. Now, have you?
No.
Right.
He's a lot of fun to listen to. I followed him from 2008 to 2010. I watched a whole bunch of stuff. He's a weirdo. I don't believe in anything he believes in. It's kind of crazy guy. So another part of the conspiracy, the technocracy. This is a planned society that's controlled by a, I guess, benevolent or not so benevolent or a very organized AI system in the middle of this city. So what is a technocracy? Technocracy is a form of government which the decision makers are selected based on their experience and any given area of responsibility, particularly in regards to scientific or technological knowledge. This was something that was popular, that began in the 30s and got popular in the 40s. In the mid-1940s, it got up to about 500,000 members, like active members. It was active in both Canada and the United States. And it thought of replacing politicians and business people with scientists and engineers to manage the economy and the various aspects of society. These kind of ideas are ideas that are explored by the World Economic Forum, mentioned in books like Between Two Ages. And obviously, Patrick Wood has talked about this ad infinitum and all the various links and connections that you could find about the stuff. And speaking of Zbigniew Brzezinski in Between Two Ages, he's got an absolutely wonderful quote that explains everything. The technocratic era involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled society. Such a society would be dominated by an elite unrestrained by traditional values. Soon it'll be possible to assert almost continuous surveillance over every citizen and maintain up-to-date, complete files containing even the most personal information about that citizen. These files will be subject to instantaneous retrieval by the authorities. So this is what he wrote in that particular book.
In 1972.
In 1972, which is nuts. It's crazy. Essentially, these are the things that we know, or the folks who've been following enough about the technocracy and conspiracy theories. The components of technocracy is transhumanism, surveillance, social welfare state, strict limit on resources, strict limit on power consumption, same thing to travel, and reproduction controlled by the state, which is something that even the highly funded crazy scientists like Aubrey de Grey believes in. Also, only the police are armed, no freedom of speech, no freedom of assembly, no ownership of property, massive penalties for disobeying the state, and not even an illusion of democracy. So these are the things that we're obviously going to be seeing with all the things that were mentioned before. Another thing about technocracy. Elon Musk, is he going to be the usher of the technocratic state? Well, Josh Heidelman is Elon Musk's grandfather. You can see they look pretty close to the same person. On October 13th, 1940, Joshua Heidelman appeared in front of the city court to face 2 charges under the Defense of Canada Act. Joshua was a part of Technocracy Incorporated, an organization that had been banned by the Canadian government several months earlier as a part of a larger group it considered subversive to the war effort. This is something that was often done in Canada during the Second World War. While this particular group was coming up, they were a sort of anti-war group, not because the war was good or bad for the country, but because it was a very inefficient way of using resources and various other things like that. So once again,
most efficient way to waste resources is war.
Yeah, exactly. There would be no politician, business people, money or income inequality. Those were all features that the technocracy called the price system. And that would have to go. So it sounds a lot like the socialist memes and ethos that we hear nowadays. So let's get started to watch this movie, because I think my life crystal is about to flash red. Thanks for the chuckle.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Bump.
Yeah. If you like what you see and you want to know more about film production, please follow the website link in the description below to learn more. While you're there, you can check out my show notes, where you can double-check my references, comment, and act like the film critic I know you are.
Thanks.
Also, all of the items on the website are affiliate links, so if you find anything of interest, please click on through. Finally, please subscribe, follow, like, share, comment, pray, and send good vibes to help us keep delivering great content.